Good morning on this fun Wednesday. So, yesterday I had mentioned about having to charge, and I was kind of making the joke that I was had a good day Monday to prepare me for the horrible day Tuesday with charging. I was right. I knew it was coming. It was a doozy of the day. So I got there at like 6:30 for work. Um, had one of my own staff have to go down to the ER. So I had to do an entire staffing reassignment and call someone else in. Luckily, they came in, or I would have probably had to take patients. Um, I had to move some staff later again for another issue. And we wound up discharging off of our unit 15 patients. And mind you, about a month ago, they got rid of all of our discharge nurses. So it falls on the staff nurses and the charge nurse for all the discharges. And a lot of our discharges, they need EMS transportation. They got to go to rehab. They got to go to all these things. Which, we got it done, but it is a lot of work to get it done without a discharge nurse, especially on the education side of things. Because if they're like I didn't have to do it this week, but I think it was like a week ago. I had a patient that's like a new diabetic. Well, part of the discharge planning for a new diabetic is you give them like this little kind of like goodie bag that has like a glucometer in it, and you teach them how to do the finger stick blood sugars. You teach them how to use insulin at home, whether it be via pen or whether it's they're drawing it up themselves with a needle. You got to do all those things with them. So that education for some people alone will take 15-20 minutes because you got to show them how to set up the machine, everything, how to log it, talk to them about their follow-up appointments, what foods are good to eat as far as diabetes. So you got to teach them how to recognize good carbs from bad carbs, talk about the different diet choices they can do to manage their diet. A lot of times Mediterranean style is the one that's recommended. Just a lot of stuff. And then she also had like that same patient had like dialysis and stuff. So it was and a bunch of other stuff. So long story short, that one patient discharge took me probably 45 minutes. So you got to think, by the time you have a total of 16 discharges, if you're spending at least 10 minutes in each one, that's 150 minutes. That's about, a little less than 3 hours of your day right there. 3 hours of your 12-hour day right there. So that's only if you spent 10 minutes a day, or 10 minutes per discharge. And used to the setup was the discharge nurse did all that. So, but now, it falls on there. So you got to do that in between your vitals, blood sugars, med administration, shift assessment, any wound care that you got. If you're getting patients back from surgery, your new admissions, you got to do the admission assessment, med rec on them. And it's becoming overwhelming for a lot of nurses. And I hate to say it, but where I'm at is actually one of the better places that I've been to as far as like the way they treat staff. Like some of the other places that I've been to, I'm not going to name any names off, but I think anyone that does travel nursing will know a particular company that starts with an H that does not usually treat staff or travelers very well. There's a few exceptions to that. But a lot of people are asking, like, why is there a shortage of nurses? Why are nurses leaving healthcare and going to become teachers or XYZ thing? And it's like, because the way the healthcare is set up, like, your responsibilities are 20, 30 items deep. And for the pay that you're doing, you can go somewhere else and make that same money without the stress if you're like an LPN or a brand new RN. And that's pretty much the issue. Like, for instance, like with the real estate, if I did real estate full time, I could make more. I could make what I make as a staff RN or more. Now, I wouldn't probably be able to make what I make as a travel nurse unless I was really hustling it. But I know, even as a travel nurse right now, I know some of my realtor friends that are making more than me annually. Now, granted, they're like really good sales agent. They hustle. They do above and beyond for their clients, and they're making 150, 200,000 a year. But for every one of them, I know probably at least 5 that are, making ends meet, maybe 40, 50,000 a year. So you do have your rock stars in any job line. Real estate's no exception. But even the ones that aren't the rock stars are still doing pretty well. Oh. But it is, and that's just my example. So then you start factoring in like LPNs making, let's say, 24 an hour. Back home at Walmart Distribution Center, they're hiring brand new people out of high school making what? I think it's like 21.50, 22. And then probably by the time it took you to get your LPN or RN, you would have had 2 years experience and be at 24 anyways. So, I mean, Walmart Distribution Center is paying people 24 an hour and you ain't even got to go to school. And then if you go learn how to drive a forklift or do logistics, or, you can make more. And you don't have to worry about the patient care side of things, dealing with parents or aunt and uncle, stuff like that. And the entitlement of patients is what's driving a lot of people away too. So it's just a lot of stressors that are driving people away from healthcare. And it's like, if you don't love what you do and you don't like doing it, you're not going to stay, just because of everything that's going on. But don't even get me started on patient care techs. Like, they're making like hardly any money, like patient care technicians are, for what they got to do. Like, I know when I started, which has been a while, there's patient care technicians that are making 15, 16 an hour. I know people working at Lowe's, Home Depot, making 15, 16 an hour. So it's like, which would you rather do? Come to work, have 18 patients that you got to go get vitals on, help granny and grandpa to the bathroom. Oh, you go over there getting harassed by a dementia patient trying to beat you up. Then you got another patient that just crapped all over the bed, so you got to bathe them, change the sheets, and then all of a sudden, because you spent so much time with them two, you got 2 family members hunting you down in the hallways saying, ain't nobody been in my granny's room to bring her a glass of ice water. I need to file a complaint. So then they file a complaint, so because they didn't get ice water. So then the administration pulls you in the office, or they get a write-up and pull you in for that. And you're like, oh, well, what could you have done differently so that this person didn't complain? Again, blaming that patient care technician, even though they were doing their job. And then, versus going to Lowe's, hey, where's the plungers? Aisle 3, bottom shelf. Checking people out. Beep, beep, beep. Oh, let me go see where this barcode is and scan it. Like, and then they're wondering why they can't get patient care technicians. Or Buc-ee's, the gas station, is starting people out at like I think $18.50 an hour. Their clerk, I mean their bathroom staff, like all they do is clean bathrooms, is making 16 an hour. Their managers are clearing over 100K. I know nurse managers at a lot of facilities that ain't even making that. Panda Express here in Warner Robins had a sign up where they were hiring a manager, 100,000 a year plus benefits. Like, again, I know nurse managers that's been doing it for a while that's barely making that. And Panda Express is over here hiring managers starting out making that. It's just a point where the money is not in healthcare, except for places like California that have unionized and done all these strikes to get better pay, better benefits. And, I see why some of these places do the strikes to get the things that they need and want for their individual self or people in general. I get it, because it is hard as a staff nurse. I mean, I do travel nursing, so I mean, my pay is significantly more for doing the same job because I'm willing to drive 2-3 hours up the road to make a pay difference. Like the amount of overtime I would have to pick up to make what I make in a 3-day, I would probably have to work 5-6 days a week as a staff nurse. Like that's the pay scale difference, and why a lot of people choose travel nursing. So then you run into the argument of, if they can pay a travel nurse that much, why can't they pay regular nurses that much? Which is a very good point, and I've said a lot of times that if all of the hospitals got together and they wouldn't even have to pay as much as they pay travel nurses. Like, let's say I'm making 65 an hour. I'm working for an agency. Clearly, my agency is getting a cut before I get paid. So they're probably billing the hospital, the agency is, for roughly 100 an hour. That means that same hospital is paying 100 an hour for an agency nurse to come in and work, but only wants to pay their staff 30 an hour. If they would just pay their staff 50 an hour across the board, or 45-ish, 46-ish, it would be like, oh, okay, what's the point of me traveling? Because, I mean, if I could make 46 an hour or more, or, well, probably a little bit closer to 50, but we'll say 46. So if I could make 46 an hour as a staff nurse, or let's say 60, 65 as a travel nurse, by the time I pay for my gas, pay for a hotel or whatever else I got to do, and, I'm away from my family, like I don't get to sleep in my own bed at night and stuff like that, there becomes a cost where it's like, crap, is it even worth it? By the time I pay for the gas, pay for a hotel or a campground if you have an RV or whatever you're doing, it's like, well, dang, by the time I pay for all this, the gas and everything and the food, because I don't have, a home cooked meal, so now I got to eat out. By the time you do all this stuff, you're like, well, dang, I'm almost making as much as I was when I was getting paid, 46, 50 an hour. So then it becomes like oh, well, maybe it's not worth it for me to travel. Like, I'm only making an extra $200 a week, and I'm away from my family, my wife, kids. I don't get to sleep in my own bed. So then it becomes hey, is this worth an extra $200? And you'll still have people that are like, yeah, it's worth the extra 200. I'm gonna hustle and get that extra bag. But then you're gonna have other people, such as myself, where I'm gonna be like, man, it's really not worth it. I could pick up one extra shift every other week, or twice a month. Just pick up an extra shift and make the same amount of money, and be in my own bed every night with my wife and kids. But because of the pay disparity, that's not the situation. But I feel like until that gets fixed, the pay disparity, and also, you get a patient that beats on a nurse, the administration comes in and is like, well, what could you have done differently to not get your, I was about to cuss, to not get your butt whooped by this patient? I don't know, maybe quit this job where I'm getting beaten by patients who are mentally unstable, who have a documented history of schizophrenia, bipolar. So, I mean, or who's over there detoxing off of meth, cocaine, and fentanyl. Maybe not being around those kind of individuals, maybe. And it's just a lot of things that make people quit nursing and healthcare. I know I know one that he's a guy. He quit and is driving a truck. Got his CDLs, driving a truck. He's technically making more as a truck driver with his CDLs than he was in healthcare. I know another one that left healthcare doing roofing, making more in roofing than he did in healthcare. I know a female that left and went to UPS is making almost double what she was making as a nurse, and is basically just delivering boxes to people's houses. I know another nurse who, I mean, I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, basically refused to get the COVID vaccines when it was mandated for healthcare workers, started a Feet Finders and an OnlyFans where she apparently she claims she only does like feet stuff on either one of them. I don't know if that's true or not. But she's raking in more money. I'm assuming she's just doing the feet thing because that's what she claims. She's making more money just selling pictures of her feet and doing, I guess, videos of her feet, and I don't know what else she does with it. But she's making more money doing that than she was as a nurse. And then I know another male nurse who stopped doing it, is bought a few like trailers, like single wide trailers, is renting those out, and he did that with his nursing money. But he is doing that, and then he got into bee farming, where he builds bee boxes and does beehiving and sells honey and sells the insects. And then apparently there's like some stuff with like the Food and Drug Administration or the agriculture stuff where you can get incentives and stuff because certain bees are endangered species, so the government will actually like somewhat pay for you to help repopulate them and all kinds of other stuff. And he makes like, between everything that he's doing, he makes over 100K a year. And he's like, dude, I love what I do. He's like, if my kids have a game, I'm there. My wife needs to go for an appointment, I can just be home with the kids and do everything that I need to do. If I want to go out on a fishing trip, I just make sure all the bees are, everything's chilled. I go on a week-long fishing trip and come back and have one of the workers go out there and handle it for me while I'm gone, like the little bit of maintenance. Making over 100K a year. Having, I think, like 3 trailers that he rents out and doing bees. Like it's a wild case. there's jobs also out. Like I have a habit of talking to patients about like, hey, what do you do for a living, or what did you do before you retired? And some of the jobs they tell me I didn't even know was a thing. And I'm like, so then I'd look up, like I wouldn't ask the person because I feel like it's kind of rude to ask them what they make. But I would just look up the national average for some of the jobs they would say because I didn't even know they existed. And a lot of them are making 70, 80,000 a year. And I'm like, well, dang, that's more than a tech, LPN, and pretty much, depending on what state you are, maybe even more than an RN. So, and then teaching is another one that's like underpaid. But I will say with the teachers, they have the teachers union, so they have really great benefits. Unfortunately, the nurses, we don't have that. Like, we don't have that to somewhat make a difference. But anyways, that's just me kind of ranting and raving. Um, Healthcare is not all bad, but like I said, if you don't love what you do, you're not going to last in it because it's not. You're not going to make bukus of money unless you get up to like high administration levels and stuff like that, and then you basically get to rake in six-figure salaries and write yourself a bonus saying, oh yeah, I did a pretty good job, let me write myself a $10,000 bonus. And stuff like that, that's putting an even bigger strain on everything that's going on. But I wish everybody the best of luck. I'm going to go in, get the workout on, go back to work today, and then tonight I'll be headed to the house. But y'all have a beautiful day.